Welcome to Mary Walter Radio, the podcast on this, for me, very, very, very rainy Tuesday. So just so everybody knows, we're on generator. So we've been on generator for almost 4 hours. And so far, so good. So fingers crossed. They don't see the power coming on for a couple more hours. So life at the Jersey Shore. And we had water in the house, literally pouring through the ceiling. It is interesting. So came out of nowhere. Wasn't expecting that. Nobody predicted it. And then all of a sudden, woohoo. So there we were. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. I know we have a fan favorite on tonight, so I want to get to him ASAP. I would like to thank more of our subscribers. Lots of people subscribing to the channel. Really appreciate it. DA, Pam, Melanie, Kendra, Vinny, Jim, thank you so much. Appreciate you subscribing. Thank you so much to EB for doing all the graphics for the show. Really appreciate that. And his son, Zach, who is our biggest fan, and we love Zach. And I got messages about this guy, so I know that you love him. Without further ado, another fan favorite here. Let me make him big. There we go. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, how are you? Welcome to the show. It's great to have you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Mary. It's great to be with you, and please send some of that rain to us down here in North Texas. We could use it.
Well, we needed it. We were having drought restrictions and everything, and when it rained here. Hold on a second. Yesterday.
I think your mic is on that.
My mic is on that. It's not on this. I sound very tinny. Indy.
No, the other one. Settings on.
Oh, hold on. We never have a smooth start to a show ever. So here we go. So it's the wrong one, right?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's see if that's better. Is that better? Do I sound better to you now? He says this sounds fine. So is better? All right, he's a little delayed. Anyway, I forgot where I was. We never have a smooth
Talking
start
about the rain.
show ever. So here we are yet again with a section that I'm going to have to edit out. But for those of you who don't know, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, friend of the show, thank you so much for coming on. I know you only have half an hour because you're crazy busy tonight. So I appreciate you joining us. And I just wanted to let you know that you can follow him at Alan West Alan West, ALLEN West on X. He's the chair of the Dallas GOP, the executive director of the American Constitutional Rights Union. You can find them at the acru.org. Check them out. And the man is a prolific writer. He's written Guardian of the Republic, American Ronan's Journey to Faith, Family, and Freedom, and we discussed that. Texas hold the nation, victory or death, and We Can Overcome an American Black Conservative Manifesto. So I don't know where you find the time to do it all. Oh, and he jumps out of planes for no reason whatsoever, and and he keeps trying to get me to do it, and it's not happening. So there's that. So again, thank you for joining me. So
My pleasure.
before I go anywhere with you, I have to give you this message. So there is a friend of the show, and it's American Free News Network. Everybody follow them on X, American Free News Network. And the gentleman who runs it is a guy named Mike Ford, and I've had him on the air on different shows. And he sent me a note for you. He says, your West segment, Lieutenant Colonel, retired West, doesn't know me, but I know him. He took good care of one of my subordinate officers back in the day. I owe him one. Please pass on my contact info as Colonel, retired Mike Ford.
Oh, thank you.
So you've touched a lot of people, and you probably don't even realize how many people you have touched, which is a testament to you. So in the time that I have with you, we'll talk about, so for people who are here to talk about what's happening with Walz and Kamala Harris and all of that, we'll get to that. But I want to start off with the time because we only have Alan for half an hour, so I want to get right to it. Let's see. Right off the top of the bat, I have a question for you for Dan. Do you think that the Iranians already have nukes?
Yeah, I do. I just think that they're just concerned about the delivery method, and that's why the collusion with North Korea is so important for them, because North Korea has the delivery technology, the missile technology, and really, when you look at what is happening, there is a new axis of evil, this collusion between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. So the drones that Russia is using, of course, they're coming out of Iran. The Iranian oil and those uh, energy resources. That's what they're sending and shipping to China because they need that. Just the same as Russia is providing China with natural gas. So there is a mutual relationship of support that is there, and that's why it's so important that we undermine Iran's energy resources as well as Russia's energy resources. That's a linchpin. But what was one of the first things that the Biden administration did? They went after the American oil and gas industry
Right.
and made us once again energy dependent to the point where you go into Saudi Arabia to beg hat in hand. You go into Venezuela to beg hat in hand. And we know that the Venezuelans and the Cubans and the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians are all in the same bed, all in the same boat. So I think that our energy security is a critical linchpin. And again, I do not see why anyone would vote for this current Democrat ticket because things are only going to get worse.
Yeah, they're all for getting rid of fossil fuels and making us, dependent on electricity. And the other, I don't know if it was the last podcast, maybe the one before, I talked about it on the air. A new study that came out of Poland found that yes, we're producing more carbon dioxide, but it doesn't increase the temperature for an extended period. That there's a saturation point in the planet, and that it only raises it so much, and that's it. And we passed that several decades ago. That's it. And they said that in the 1930s, the weather was far more turbulent than it is now. That was when the Dust Bowl was, and we had the Great
Hmm.
Drought. That they had far more extreme weather events with hurricanes,
Hmm.
etc., tornadoes, all that stuff. It was far worse in the 1930s than it is now. But there's no money in that,
No,
so
no, there's no fear mongering in that. There is no ability to force the American people to change their way of life and their lifestyles and give up their appliances and what type of vehicles that they drive. Look, everyone knows that the major polluter in the world is China and India. But yet,
yes,
when you think about the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, there's a financial axis that is coming together that we have to be very careful because if we continue down this path of exorbitant debt and these deficit spendings and these trillions upon trillions of dollars of spending that we see, we're going to devalue our currency and it will no longer be the currency standard for the world. And that's what these BRIC countries are going after.
yeah. Porch View Farm says, I am so looking forward to another interesting conversation with Colonel West. I am still riding high from the D-Day conversation. uh, thank you for facilitating Tuesdays. Uh, Now Tax USA says, I hope you have the answers. I've been listening to Viking war drums all day. Great to be here again with the diehards. Let's get this. I'll let everyone else fill in the blanks. I think a lot of people are kind of like OD'd on the politics part of the
Yeah.
day, the Kamala Harris and the Walz, but there other things are going on. Hermit Sal says, why do you think that our naval forces are not taking on the Iranian Navy and their proxy naval forces head on to free the ocean routes for maritime commerce?
Because this administration is afraid of proactive engagement. I mean, I think everyone remembers the naval operation during the Ronald Reagan administration when the Iranian mine struck one of our U.S. warships. I mean, it was the largest naval engagement, surface warfare naval engagement for the Navy since World War II. And that's what people understand that part of the world. They understand strength, they understand might. And, Ronald Reagan's phrase, peace through strength. But this administration is just shaking like leaves on the tree. As a matter of fact, we had 5 Americans that were wounded because of rocket and missile attacks. So, the Biden administration is enabling our enemies, and it will not change because Kamala Harris is part of the Biden administration, and those policies will continue on. And if you want to see complete disrespect and abject weakness, go ahead, vote for her, this radical knucklehead from Minnesota with whom I served in Congress with, and you're going to get more of the same.
Regarding those 5 service men who were injured in that attack on the base, do you notice that neither Biden or Harris has said a word about them?
Of course
They
not.
haven't even acknowledged that they were injured, like nothing.
Yeah, and that's the point that I think is very frustrating right now. You know, you go back and we now know that there has not been a cabinet meeting in the Biden administration since October of last year. So it just begs the question, who is in charge of this administration? Who is in charge of the country and all these things that are happening? And, you know, being a former artillery officer, and I'm sure there are people on this radio program that are military, they know exactly what I'm about to talk about. You know, you can trace back the trajectory of a rocket or missile within seconds of it being fired before it impacts on the other side. That's called counterfire drill. And that was one of the things that we always worked on in artillery. And that's why we had, you know, it used to be Q-36, Q-37 radar systems. So I cannot understand why we are not immediately firing back on these sites that are launching these rockets and missiles. Instead, what we do is say, well, you know, we got a response coming 24 hours. We still, you know, we're looking at our response. The response is coming. And then what did they do? They end up shooting at dirt because you have given the opposition and their artillery and their rockets and missiles plenty of time to withdraw or reposition,
Right.
what have you. So this administration is, again, they have no desire for proactive actions. And when you look at Hezbollah, the Houthis, I mean, here's an organization of Islamic terrorists that are causing massive problems for international sea lines of communications. And that should not be the case. We should be thumping these guys and making them crawl back under whatever rock. But again, it comes back to undermining the ability of Iran to be able to finance and resource these individuals.
Speaking of financing and resourcing, how did we accidentally give $239 million to the Taliban?
Well, there is no accident to that. I mean, you know, so again, but who's in charge? When you have a defense secretary that goes missing and nobody knows about it for what, 7 to 10 days? Again,
Right.
that just shows, you know, who is in charge here. So, you know, it's not something that I think happens on accident. It is intentional, it's purposeful, and these things are, you know, revealed in a later moment and a later time. Just the same as we're looking and we're finding out all of these things about the Biden administration having allowed, I think, 99 to 100 people that were on a terrorist watch list
Yeah,
to
into the
come and be
country.
released into the country.
Yeah.
But yet, you know, we hear from, you know, Secretary Mayorkas that the border is secure. The border czar is not the border czar, and the real root causes of illegal immigration is climate change. So I guess the weather is bad in over 160 different countries, to include many of these countries being on the terrorist watch list.
So we allow they knew that 100 plus terrorists, I think it was over 200, they were on the terror
Mhm.
watch list when they released them into the
Yes.
United States.
Yeah.
They knew that. So it's being done knowingly. My question to you is, what's the end game? Do they honestly think the terrorist attack on this country, which will happen, it's not a question of if, it's when it's going to happen, that somehow benefits them in some way?
Well, look, Mary, I think everyone with common sense and a functioning brain understands or realizes that there is a collusion, an unholy alliance between the progressive socialists, the Marxists here in America, and Islamic jihadists. Let's be very honest. Why was Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania not selected? Because he is Jewish and he is very strongly pro-Israel. And when you have someone like Van Jones on CNN
Yeah.
completely admitting that Kamala Harris needed to pick someone to throw a bone to these radical young people that I'm quite sure are going to hit the college campuses again within the month and start to protest on behalf of Hamas. That's who they are focusing on. And so when you look at Dearborn, Michigan, you know, the home of Rashida Tlaib, and you look at Minneapolis, Minnesota, the home of Ilhan Omar, you're talking about two of the most vile and virulent basis of support for Islamic jihadism. Let's not forget, it was not too long ago, 2015, 2016, during the height of ISIS, the hotbed for ISIS recruitment and ISIS volunteers was Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was just going back and reading some things. 25 to 30% of the Americans that volunteered to leave this country and go fight for ISIS were from Minneapolis, Minnesota, out of the Somali refugee community. So that's what Kamala Harris just selected, a community that is filled with domestic terrorists, a community that is filled with Islamic terrorists and jihadists.
Yeah. Oreo 2016 wants to know, what is the current status of the Iranian people, their position against the current regime?
Well, I think we all know that the Iranian people, mostly young people, they do not want this type of repression and this type of oppression. We saw that back during the Obama administration. They got no support from the Obama administration. They're getting no support from this current administration. The only time that they had a hope was during the Trump administration, because again, they were undermining the financial stability of
Right.
Iran, which would enable that regime to be toppled. And Joe Biden comes in, and I think we're up to about close to $75 billion that we have enriched the Iranian regime with. And on top of that, we've eased back on the sanctions. So how many hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars they've gotten from selling their oil revenues to China and to others?
Yeah, I just don't, I guess, you talk about the unholy alliance. So I guess the end plan is they're just going to make us into an Islamic state. That's what they want to do. And I guess the people at the top, the political elites, the ruling elite, it just doesn't affect them, or they take all their money and they go somewhere else when they're done destroying this place. I don't know.
I think that one of the things that they would like to see is that you allow these terrorist cells to terrorize people like you and I, terrorize the true American citizen. I mean, how can an administration allow for people to publicly state death to America and that America needs to be destroyed? We saw that happen in Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah.
That's not freedom of speech. That's not freedom of expression. That's sedition. If you're an American citizen, that's treason. If you're not an American citizen, you should be deported. And that's what we see happening on these college and university campuses, where we have Americans that are supporting a terrorist organization that killed Americans about a year ago and still holds Americans hostage. But yet you hear nothing from the presumptive nominee for the Democrat Party. And I'm sure you're not going to hear anything from the vice presidential nominee for the Democrat Party.
So let's talk about Israel and
Mhm.
Iran, since we talked about Josh Shapiro and the big middle finger that the Democrats gave to the Jewish population, which, by the way, my friend Rhoda, who was my bestie when I was living in DC, she was my neighbor. She just turned 93, God love her. But she's all excited because her granddaughter was at the Harris rally today, and they're so proud and they're so excited to see her on TV at the Harris rally. I'm like, your daughter was in Israel on October 7th, and luckily they are very wealthy and they were able to get out, God, that's great. And luckily she wasn't hurt, nor was her aunt that she was with, etc. But I don't understand the mental disconnect at all. I don't get it. And I don't bring it up. I'm like, oh, that's great, but my house is flooding. I don't have time to watch it today. I just don't understand that at all. Now, apparently Israel is waiting for retaliatory strikes from Iran and Hezbollah because they are taking out their leaders one by one. And it's something Israel is very good at, and bully for them. I'm behind this 100%. You strike me, I think you have every right to strike back.
Yeah.
The Jerusalem Post, though, is posting, it wrote a piece on the chatter that there will be a preemptive strike on Iran and Hezbollah by Israel. Is that first of all, I don't know if you think that'll happen or not. And if so, is that a smart move on Israel's part, or does it just start right now? We're going tit for tat over there. Does a preemptive strike just light the powder keg?
If I'm Prime Minister Netanyahu, I could care less about international opinion. About my job is to protect my country. My job is to protect my people. And when I am surrounded on three sides by an enemy that says that they exist to eliminate, eradicate, and destroy our state and our people, why should you sit back and wait to catch rockets and missiles? I think that you should go after that capability. That's what we saw Israelis do against Saddam Hussein's capability. That's what we saw them do against the Syrian capability. And again, I think that that is the message that needs to be sent. And I truthfully believe that when you look at countries like, Saudi Arabia, you look at countries like Kuwait, you look at the UAE, they don't want this level of threat. They don't want this level of terrorism because Iran is an existential threat to them as well. I mean, the Houthis were shooting rockets and missiles into Saudi Arabia, into their oil fields. So, I think that there's a nod, wink, wink. Take these guys out because they are the ones that are threatening all of our lives and our livelihoods, and we don't want to see this region be embroiled into a major war. So I think that's a huge thing that everyone sits around and Prime Minister Netanyahu did not tell us how to respond after 9/11. So why are we trying to dictate to him his safety and security processes, protocols, and policies? That to me, that's insane. Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, the Houthis are non-state, non-uniform belligerents on a battlefield. They are terrorist organizations. Everyone in the world should come together and support Israel as a recognized nation state against a terrorist organization, or the collaboration of terrorist organizations and the one nation state that is supplying these terrorist organizations. Where's the United Nations at this time? I mean, the United Nations spends 99.9% of its time condemning two countries, America and Israel. So that's why I think, one of the things we should look is the United Nations a viable institution anymore. Now we know that UNRWA has been, you know where I'm going, so you go ahead and finish.
I do. Go for it. No, do it.
No, yeah, I saw you smile. You perked up because you know exactly. UNRWA has been a front organization supporting Hamas. And Gaza is governed by a terrorist organization. So guess what? I don't want a neighbor next to me that says that every day I wake up to kill you and destroy you. I mean, if my neighbor next door to me, sends me a note saying, Alan, I'm waking up today, I want to kill and destroy you, he's not going to see the end of that day.
Yeah, I can't blame you. Talking about UNRWA, 9 staff members who worked for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, for Palestine refugees, they say now may have been involved in the October 7th attack on Israel. Yeah. They had 19 of them, and they vetted them, and some of them, in one case, no evidence was found. That staffer returned to the agency. In 9 cases, the evidence was insufficient. And for the remaining 9 cases, the evidence, if authenticated and corroborated, could indicate that those UNRWA staff members may have been involved in the attacks, and their contracts with UNRWA will be terminated. But I agree with Donald Trump. Like, Donald Trump was just like, defund it. And let's I can't believe you're going to defund the UN. Oh my gosh, really? Yeah. What good are they? Even George Bush, who is no conservative, he's a rhino. He was like, UN stands for unnecessary. Why? I'm not going to the UN to when it came after 9/11, right? He's like, I'm not going to the UN to get approval for what we're going to do to defend ourselves, to retaliate. I'm not going to the UN. So
yeah, I mean, we saw the
save a lot of money.
Yeah, we saw the failure of the League of Nations, and I think now the United Nations has run its course. The United Nations is a conglomerate of dictators, despots, theocrats, and autocrats. I mean, think about the United Nations Security Council and the fact that the United States is sitting, peer to peer with Russia and China, and you have North Korea and Libya and all these other countries that are violators of human rights and things of this nature, and that's supposed to be okay? No. We're not a peer to these countries. As a matter of fact, China is our number 1 geopolitical foe. So why should we be sitting in a collective body politic and its quote unquote Security Council with our number 1 geopolitical foe? That is chemically poisoning. Over 200,000 Americans have lost their lives in the Biden administration because of fentanyl.
No, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Is this Substack author Dark Star says Tren de Aragua is a military force sent here to activate military conflict when they get the word. Do you think that's true?
Well, I mean, I don't know about Dark Star and Trinidad, but I know that without a doubt, there are Islamic jihadist terror cells that are operating here. Look, you have more single military age males in the United States of America, thanks to the Biden administration, than you do the active duty strength of our United States Army. That should tell you something.
Yeah.
And when you talk about 1.5 to 2 million gotaways, I mean, people that we don't know who they are, where they are, that's greater. That number is greater than the size of the active duty United States military, 1.5 to 2 million. So we have a force that is operating. And the book that Peter Schweitzer just recently wrote about China and its influence and impact, I mean, China is doing everything they possibly can to arm these individuals inside the United States of America.
Yeah.
Big concern.
Gregory says, great appearance on Newsmax on August 1st, sir.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, she has lots of fans.
August 1st was my 20th anniversary of retiring from the military. So,
wow, 20 years. God bless you. Good for you. Let's see. I'm gonna quickly go through these because I gotta let him go. Mary says, by the way, I was in 8th grade with Mary. What does Colonel West know of Sean Ryan is reporting about imminent terror warnings from Ahmad Massoud? I believe it was on Ryan's show where it was reported we were sending 80 million a week to the Taliban. She put another weekly to the Taliban.
You got me on that. And I mean, I don't know if this is Massoud's son or, a relative of his that is, trying to fight for that liberation front there in Afghanistan against the Taliban. So I'd have to look up and read more about that, Miss Mary McCandless.
My best friend in 8th grade. 2 quick questions for you. Tulsi Gabbard is under surveillance in the Quiet Skies program. What the hell?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that I am, and probably you are too, Mary. Look,
I don't think I'm that important. I don't think I am. I'm not.
I don't know. Anybody that has a voice that can speak out against, the policies of this current regime, this administration, it is very disturbing, for me to think that illegals get better treatment than American citizens. Illegals get better treatment than veterans. They're getting free health care, all types of debit cards, free benefits, and may end up getting the opportunity to vote in certain states in this upcoming election.
Insane. We're spending money, according to a whistleblower, who's ready to go on the record with pertinent documentation. Gabbard is unaware that she has 2 explosive detection canine teams, 1 transportation security specialist for explosives, 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals on every flight she gets on. Now, I have to tell you, that would make me feel safe. Like if something goes down in the plane in the middle, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm glad these people are following me. This is great. That to me is like, yay. But it seems like such a waste of money for Tulsi Gabbard?
Yeah, it's an extreme waste of resources. And again, what threat does Tulsi Gabbard, present to this country that hundreds of thousands of single military age males, to include, I believe we're up to about 30 to 35,000 Chinese single military age males. Why are they the ones being looked at also?
All right. Last question, and then I will let you go. It is being reported, this is according to the DOJ, and it's only 4 paragraphs of the story. A Pakistani man with ties to the Iranian government sought to carry out a political assassination in the United States, a case that was investigated weeks before a gunman tried to kill Trump at a Pennsylvania campaign rally. Asif Merchant, 46 years old, traveled to New York City, worked with a hitman to carry out the assassinations in late August or early September, according to federal prosecutors in a court complaint. The complaint said the plot was intended to target high-ranking U.S. officials, potentially including Trump. I'm a cynic. This was all about Trump. It wasn't about anybody else. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, look, and it's not just this one individual. I'm sure that you have more of these individuals that have been brought into this country. Hezbollah has a foothold in Venezuela. And the drug cartels, which are transnational narco criminal terrorist organizations themselves, whom we should be targeting, they will aid and abet and assist anyone to get into this country that pays them the money. And again, that's why we should be very concerned about what Iran is able to do by the resources that we have emboldened them with. So Christopher Wray, has already said that there are terrorist cells that are out there. We're in a heightened state of alert, probably the most high state of alert since 9/11. And I would not be surprised if we don't hear more of this, to include, remember the 400 some odd that the ISIS organization was enabling people to infiltrate in. We had the 8 Tajikistan individuals aligned with ISIS that we caught in Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia. We had the 3 Libyan nationals that were here illegally that tried to take a truck onto Marine Corps Base Quantico. These are not coincidences.
But we let the 2 guys from Quantico, we released them back into the country if they promised to come back for their ICE hearing.
Yeah.
What? But Tulsi Gabbard has like a basketball team following her around, and those 2 guys just have to promise to come back for their ICE hearing in like 2027.
Yeah, well, that's how stuck on stupid this administration is. And again, to your friend who was clapping and cheering about her daughter going to the Harris rally, just ask her, what if her daughter ended up like Laken Riley? Or what if her daughter ended up like Jocelyn Nungare, who was brutally raped by 2 illegal immigrants? Somehow this has to come and hit some of these people at home.
Yeah,
the 37-year-old mother of 5 in Maryland who was brutally raped and killed while she's just out walking on a jogging trail. So these people that are, in bed and allowing these things to happen, they are the real threats to our representative democracy. They are the real threats to our constitutional republic.
Yeah, they just don't see it. You can't, when their beliefs are so strong, it's almost like a religion. It's very, very difficult to talk sense. And I just don't say anything. Look, God bless her, she's 93 years old. So, whatever. I ain't changing her now.
Well,
But
I think that, that 30 to 35%, maybe yes, but we have got to convince 60 to 65% of this nation. The great thing that I like is that I remember the last person from Minnesota that ran for a presidential level, position was Walter Mondale, and he only won 1 state, and that was Minnesota. Minnesota is the only state that never voted for Ronald Reagan. So I think that the left has backed themselves in a very bad corner. Eventually, they got to talk about policies, and their policies are not what the American people want. And they'll be on full display next week at their DNC convention.
I don't even know why they're having one. They nominated her in the dark of night last night, right? Virtually. And I got as many primary votes as she did.
Yep,
So,
me too.
Yeah, you too, exactly. So I don't even understand why they're even having a convention. What's the point of it? But they want to keep her in the news in a positive light. I don't think there's going to be a debate. She's not going to debate Trump. She will use every excuse in the book to debate Trump. There will be no conversations with the media. They have to ride this out for what, 90 days now? We're like 90 days out. That's all they have to do is hide her for 90 days. And that's totally doable because the media is totally complicit. So, it's all going to be fluff and roses and sunshine and unicorns and everything else. And they've done this before. They did it with Biden. They can do it with her. And they're going to pay. Listen, they have 22 days, 3 days to burnish Walz and make him look like, the Candyman. And people will suck it up because they want to believe it because they hate Trump so much. Orange man bad. So she's not Joe. She's not Trump. Yeah, I'm going to vote for her, unfortunately. And so I'm very pessimistic about the whole thing. But I will let you go because I promised Gwen I would only keep you for half an hour, and I don't want to get yelled at. So,
well, I just want to say that in military you can continue to use the same tactic too often, and it will fail you. And all you have to do is go back and look at how Hannibal continued to use the exact same tactics in employing elephants. And that was one of the reasons why he was severely defeated by the Roman legion at Zama, the battlefield of Zama, because he didn't change his tactics up enough.
Yeah, well, the difference is the Romans want to win, and I'm not convinced the GOP does.
Well, some of us do. and we'll
So they
convince
don't
them.
they don't really are not known for their fighting techniques, the GOP.
No, they're
They're
not. But you know what? I think that we got enough, real American men and women such as yourself that are going to light a fire under their asses and get them in the right direction.
Well, one of these days, you and I have to take a plane trip together just so we can, like hand out candy
Jump
to the
out?
Secret Service following us, the
No.
TSA agents following us.
Yeah, we'll just take parachutes and see if they jump out after us.
No, stop with the jumping out of the plane thing.
You walked into
Goodbye.
that one.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Follow him on X at Allen Allen West. I so appreciate your time. You are one of my
Always a pleasure.
favorites. Thank you so much. You have a
Thank you, Mary.
wonderful evening. Take care.
God
Bye bye. All right, it is us. All right, so leave your comments. So I want to get into, of course, the whole Kamala Harris, Tim Walz thing. So just and just a housekeeping note, I will be in for Todd Starnes tomorrow on the Todd Starnes Show. It is heard nationally. Or you can go to kwam.com and look for it. And I believe it's also on TuneIn, the TuneIn app. Just look for the Todd Starnes radio show or look for KWAM, KWAM. That's his home station. So it'll be in noon to 3 tomorrow Eastern time. And let's see, my guests, I have Dr. Ben Carson, Jeffrey Lord, and I forget who the third person is, but that's what I know so far. So that's who it is. All right, so let's talk about this now. I will tell you, I was going to have audio for you, and I was going to have Tim Walz saying all this stuff, and then my house started flooding, and the window. We have these windows on the house because it's old that they have like hinges on the bottom, and these big old windows that are 100 years old, and they would bend in. You can pull them in so you can clean them, which is really remarkable. Why we don't do that today? But they were much smarter 100 years ago. So they fall in. So the windows on the third floor, because I couldn't get the storm windows down. I was trying so hard. I couldn't get the storm windows down. So some of those like blew in. I had water everywhere. And so it's just been a hell of a day. And like I said, we're still on generator. It's just crazy. Everything was flooded. There were cars floating because people don't pay attention. And it's just crazy. My husband couldn't get home from work. So I had a little bit of a day. So I couldn't pull the audio, so I'm apologizing to you for that now. So let me ask you, do you think Kamala Harris picked Walz because she was afraid of the Hamas wing of the party? She was afraid of the Ilhan Omars, the Rashida Tlaibs, the AOCs. She was afraid that if she picked Josh Shapiro, that she would alienate that radical far left-wing part of the party. Now, here's my thought. I kind of think this was dumb. I really thought that it was going to be Mark Kelly. That's just me, because I think Mark Kelly could have helped her on the border. To me, because it was Josh Shapiro, Tim Walz, and Mark Kelly. If she chose Josh Shapiro, she would alienate the far left Hamas wing. But she's ahead of Trump by like 11 points in Michigan. So if she loses half of that, she still wins. She still beats Trump. Trump's never going to win in Michigan. It's not going to happen. So to me, why not pick Shapiro? Even if you take off the Hamas wing of the party, you're still going to win. Because again, even if you lose half of your support in Michigan, you still win Michigan. So I was really surprised. But I didn't think she was going to pick Shapiro. I thought she was going to go with Kelly, just because that was the safer choice. It wasn't the Hamas. It wasn't the Hamas wing. It wasn't the Jewish wing of the party. She would sidestep that entire problem and just go with a guy who lives on the border, who has been kind of strong on a little bit. He's got some bona fides on the border and could probably get her out of that jam. And she didn't. So why do you think it is that she picked Walz and not Shapiro? All right, let me get your comments here. Let's see. Reagan 1.0, Godspeed. Never fight a battle the same way twice. Okay. Dan said Jews are split. The Sephardic and Mizrahis want a preemptive hit, and the Ashkenazi libs are still in the 1920s mentality. See, we have a really big Hasidic population near us. Huge Hasidic population. They are all Trump supporters. I see them at the gun range. all Trump supporters. So they are solid red. But then you get like I think more the Reform Jews who are much more liberal, like my friend, you know, and I love her to death. But I don't talk politics with her because I just get, oh, Mary, you know, you can't have that conversation. So I'm like, oh, yay, glad she's there. Oh, that's so exciting, you know. And I was like, I'm not getting into it. I support Israel as a Catholic more than she does as a Jew. But yet her granddaughter was there. Her granddaughter was in Israel. So it's not like there are a lot of American Jews who don't care about Israel who don't feel an attachment to it. She was there. So I don't understand it. Let's see. You should get life jackets for the next rainstorm. Let me tell you, it was raining 7 inches an hour. I kid you not. It's crazy. When was the last time Kamala made a smart choice? Well, it's a good question. But all right, so let me ask you this question too. I don't think Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz. I really don't. I think Barack Obama is behind all of this. Uh-oh, the lights just blinked. I think Barack Obama was behind all of this. I don't know whether he chose Waltz and maybe Kamala is going to be out and Waltz is going to be in. I don't know. Maybe they'll find a way to get rid of her. They get her elected and then she's out. They buy her a house on Lake Champlain next to Bernie Sanders and off she goes into the Somerset. Waltz is more of a Marxist than Shapiro. Oh, yeah. He's left of Kamala Harris. He's like crazy town left, like crazy Marxist communist left. And doesn't care and doesn't apologize for it at all. He, let me see, on the border, he said he did an interview and he said he wanted to invest in a ladder factory to help immigrants climb Trump's border wall because they said that's not the answer. We have to give these people a path to citizenship. So everybody who comes here, he thinks should be citizens and that he would help them climb Trump's border wall. He supports gun control, even though they're trying to paint him. Kamala Harris did something tonight about the NRA and how he's a big NRA guy and he's a sportsman. He supports an assault weapons ban, universal background checks, and red flag laws, which I have to tell you, I have a problem with red flag laws. I think they're abused and cause a lot of problems. He is for phasing out fossil fuels. He called Trump a fascist and a threat to democracy just weeks after the assassination attempt. So none of this. We need to cool down the rhetoric, not him. And he accused all MAGA people of being weird and crazy. He is also accused, and Colonel West did touch on this. He's accused of burnishing his military career. When he found out that his unit was going to Iraq, he supposedly beat feet and said, gee, retiring, getting out. What a good idea. He's so brave. Watching Your Back says she should have picked someone from a swing state instead of someone from a state that was a lock for her. Let's see. Oh, over on Getter, Ikebop says more dynamic. I have no idea what that means, but all right, thank you. Waltz is more Marcus than Shapiro. Yes. Oreo says Shapiro would have been a stronger pick, but I agree with you. She was afraid of separations. Plus, Shapiro was Jewish. There was currently anti-Semitism against Jewish people. I think the other thing she's afraid of is Shapiro is more dynamic than her. To Ikebop over BP over on Getter, he is a better candidate than she. So you always want your VP candidate to not be better than you. That's why Obama picked Biden, right? Like he was never going to get impeached because look what you get. You got Joe Biden. You got the rutabaga. So why do you want the rutabaga? Like, all right, so we'll live with Obama. Oh, that was in response to your mic change. Thank you so much. I don't know if Waltz is less dynamic than she, but it appears he can form a sentence better. She reads a teleprompter. That's it. She reads it better than Joe Biden. So yay, that makes her better. But I don't think there's going to be a debate. I really don't. Kamala probably did so out of fear of a squad backlash or Los ones in Minnesota and Michigan. Gregory, she's going full radical. It is the party of Hamas after all is said and done. Suze, I'm not completely sure the Dems won't pull the rug out again. I won't believe it until the ballots are printed. Yeah, the ballots, I got news for you. The ballots are already being printed with her name checked off. Her little box there is going to be perfectly circled in. Ballots aren't even going to be folded, and they're going to scan those puppies through those machines, in my humble opinion, and they're gonna arrive at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, when they know how many they need, they'll just like boop, throw them all in there. I'm sorry, I don't trust it at all. Star Driver, I've heard the Pelosi was behind part of this. Wouldn't surprise me, and Obama being behind it. Supposedly, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and Barack Obama were the ones who went to Joe and said, look, we've got Kamala on board. She's behind calling for the 25th Amendment for you. So she's stabbing you right in the back. It was the night of long knives for Joe Biden. So the story is allegedly that they went to him and said, Kamala Harris is in on is on the 25th Amendment. The Senate's going to vote for it. You're going to get 25th Amendment. You can't pass the test. You're going to be out. So go out on your own. And apparently, Schumer and Pelosi and Obama wanted a mini primary because they didn't think Kamala would win because she's so disliked. So they figured that they could put up apparently Greg Kelly and that he would win over Kamala Harris because she's not liked. And this is how they get rid of their Kamala Harris problem. Thanks anyway, sweetheart. So sorry. Here's your consolation prize, and out the door you go. But Biden, at the end of his speech where he stepped down and said, I'm not going to run, he endorses Kamala Harris. Now, my money is on Dr. Jill putting that in the teleprompter and Dr. Jill convincing him to do that in order to screw the Obamas and Pelosi and Schumer for screwing Biden. Coups are messy. They really are. Not as messy as the Real Housewives of New Jersey, but coups are messy. So that's what according to the New York Post. Herman Sal says maybe they told Kamala, do as we say, choose whom we want, or we will push you aside like we did Biden. Yeah, they might have. They very well might have. And look, for all we know, she's getting paid handsomely to just, be the face of it, the cackle, the sound of it all. I wonder if they even have a say-so and who they get to pick for their vice presidential candidate. I don't think she had a say-so. Normally she would, but I don't think she did in this situation, Scott. President Scott says, what I heard in the past is that historically when the economy has problems and the job market has problems, that an incumbent president has never been reelected. I think you're right. Gregory says Walz is a running dog for the CCP. He spent quite some time teaching in China. Yeah, he even talked about all the gifts that the Chinese gave him. More gifts than he could even bring home. I'm like, boy, you and Hunter, look what you have in common with the Obamas. Star Driver 1 says Walz's daughter has been outed for helping protect the rioters in Minneapolis during the 2020 riots. Yes, she has. She would text certain people to warn them when the National Guard and SWAT were coming. It's exactly what she did. Yep. And he's so proud. He raised a good little socialist, a good little anarchist. But now that daddy's in power, I wonder how that works. Is she still against the man once daddy's in power? That'll be interesting to see how that works. I think once they get power, all of a sudden they like it. And all of a sudden power is not so bad. It's kind of like Bernie Sanders. Bernie was against the man and he honeymooned in Russia until Bernie became the man. And then suddenly everything's cool because now I got 3 houses. Yeah, all from democracy, all from capitalism there, big guy. But suddenly it's great. Star Driver 1, I have a suspicion Walz and Harris had ties to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to bail out rioters. They may have. They apparently met at a Planned Parenthood meeting. Because, what better way than to meet somebody than, over killing babies? Because if you're a ghoul, it kind of works for you. Oreo says, the more that I think about that, Shapiro would have been bottom heavy and outperformed Kamala. Yeah. But it's a great way. Who cares if they're voting for him or they're voting for her, right? The ticket still wins, and that's what it's all about. That's why I'm so surprised they went with Walz. Now, part of the appeal, I think, is that people are like, who? Remember when think back to when Barack Obama first came on the scene. Everyone's like, who? Never heard of this guy. He had been a senator for 2 years, voted president more than he voted yay or nay. He was a blank slate. He didn't really have a record. So he was the perfect candidate for people behind the scenes to put up there to get elected and become the face of the party. Walz is kind of along those lines, although he has more of a record because he, after all, he did vote for free tampons. He signed a bill for free tampons in all the boys' rooms in his state. And I'm like, where do boys put tampons? I need an anatomy lesson or a biology lesson for that one. I don't get it. Lauren with her weekly question of, seriously? Lauren, jump in, please. I want to hear it. Tell me why I should love Tim Walz. Tell me why I should love Kamala Harris. Tell me what Harris accomplished in her 4 years of VP that makes her worthy of the presidency. I'm open to it. Just tell me. I've asked this question over and over and over again, and nobody answers the question. Nobody tells me. Well, she was the DA in San Francisco. Okay, that's a resume builder. That's not an accomplishment. It's not an accomplishment. She was the vice president. Okay, not an accomplishment. That's not something on your resume. What did she accomplish as vice president? Why is Tim Walz so great? He's a communist. His daughter's an anarchist. Kamala Harris hawked, while vice president, a bail fund to bail out rioters who were burning down mom and pop stores in our inner cities, who were attacking police officers, who tried to burn police officers alive in a police precinct in Portland, who caused millions and millions and millions of dollars in damage. And she's hawking a bail fund for them. Why should I vote for her? And I love, Lauren, that you join us. I really do. And I'm not going to mock you. I think you know that. I'm curious. Fill me in because I don't get it. Star Driver says the Queen is right. The ballots are printed, the vans are rented, and the drivers are hired. Yeah. And when there's no transparency, this is why people think this way. Herman says, maybe Kalama feared a squad backlash or fear of losing votes in Michigan and Minnesota. I really hate autocorrect. You're using voice to text. Who are you kidding? Dan Byer says, thank you for something. Yes, Jamie Raskin, according to Watching Your Back, is already trying his shenanigans with Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. He's already saying, if Trump wins, we're going to overthrow him. Gee, that sounds like an insurrection, that he wants to take out a duly elected president with parts of the 14th Amendment, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. What is that, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment? I had it. Hold on. 14th Amendment, Section 3. Boom, came right up because I searched it before. Disqualification which prohibits certain former rebels from holding office. Great, but he's never been charged with insurrection, so but Jamie Raskin and the Democrats won't let that stop them. They've already done a coup. They've already had a very successful public coup, and nobody cares. The Democrat rank and file are like, yay, we're preserving democracy by having someone be our presidential candidate that literally no one voted for. Yay! But the guy we voted for, they threw out of office. But that's okay, because we're preserving democracy. It doesn't make any sense. They can't get rid of Kamala or they lose $200 million in campaign money. That is true. That's a problem. Porchview Farm Raskin is a dangerous man. Yes, he is. Walz's daughter will be put in charge of the Antifa Hitler Youth. Dan says, this looped back about 10 minutes. The broadcast began again. Any reason why? I have zero idea why. This was happening last week with YouTube. I don't know the answer to that. I'm super sorry. My generator's still going because we have lights. So it's not me. Did you see that? Greg says, did you see that Walz's wife threw open the window in their house so they could smell the burning city? Sick. I did see that. That is really sick. So she could smell the tires burning. First of all, carcinogen. So, maybe not a good idea. But what kind of sick puppy throws open the window so she can enjoy the smell of the city burning? He's right. I think I have that audio for tomorrow on the Todd Starnes show. Let me see. Do I have that audio? No, but I got to get that. I don't have that audio. Yeah, I'll have to get that for tomorrow. If anybody has it, could you tweet it to me at Mary Walter Radio? I would appreciate it, or DM me with it, Mary Walter Radio, because I want that for tomorrow if anybody has that audio. So were Harrison Walz collection donations from Planned Parenthood? I don't know what that means. I missed that. Raskin threatens to use the 14th Amendment to block Trump from entering the White House. Can they? I don't know. I don't think they can. Star Driver says, preach it, Hermit. Dan says, Scamala picked Walz to prevent Chirac from being burned. The Hamas jihadis threatened to light up Chicago if the Jew was picked. And you know, again, I don't understand Jews who are Democrats who vote for this. To me, again, I'm a Catholic and I'm more protective of Israel and, you know, and this anti-Semitism that's coming from the left against the Jews than they are. Let's see. Star Driver says her biggest accomplishment as VP has been she has the lowest approval rating ever. Yeah. Porchview Farm, I do not like women who have relations to further a career. There is an appropriate name for these type of chicks. Yeah, I agree. No one from January 6th has been charged with insurrection, according to Star Driver. Absolutely. He also says, Dan, this may be your issue, your problem with it looping. I have had no issues here. Herman says, what do you mean? Who am I kidding? I'm typing. I'm not using voice to chat. Let's see. Dan says the deep state has control over my feed. So let me just very quickly, so Walz, I wanted to go into this about Walz and what the New York Post is reporting, that he embellished. He's being accused by vets of embellishing his military career for years before that he dropped out of his National Guard unit. Veterans have accused him of abandoning his, I hate pop-ups, of abandoning his National Guard battalion, highlighting that he never served in combat and retired from service ahead of his unit's 05 deployment to Iraq. In a letter posted to Facebook in 2018, as he first ran for governor, retired command sergeants Major Thomas Behrens and Paul Herr said Walz retired from his 24-year tenure in the National Guard after learning that his battalion would be deployed to Iraq, despite allegedly assuring his fellow troops that he would join them. On May 16th of 2005, Walz quit, betraying his country, leaving the 1-125th Field Artillery Battalion and its soldiers hanging without its senior non-com officer as the battalion prepared for war. Walz, now 60, wrapped his military career just in time, 10,000 pop-ups, for him to launch his political career the following year, successfully running for Congress in 2006. They criticized him for leaving the National Guard for Congress, despite being fully aware that he could have requested permission from the Pentagon to seek office while on active duty. He further dodged, according to them, the necessary paperwork to ensure a smooth transition out of military service, and instead, quote, slithered out the door, with his retirement filing showing, quote, soldier not available for signature. They also accused him of having, quote, embellished and selectively omitted facts of his military career for years. Walz says he has an honorable record, and other service members who led the same battalion have defended him, saying he was a great soldier. When he chose to leave, he had every right to leave. This gentleman indicated that other attacks on Walz's record may have been made by disgruntled soldiers who are passed up for promotions. So, two sides to the story. Very, very interesting. All right. I think we're done, right? Are we done here, guys? I think we're done. Collecting donations at Planned Parenthood. Sorry. Okay, Star Driver. Oreo, Mary, I sent you a post on X. Is that okay? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. And like I said, if anybody finds that audio, I'll find it. I think I saw it, so I just have to go back and get it, of his wife saying that she opened the windows so that she could smell the city burning. Star Driver said Will Cow covered that. All right, so let me see if Will Cow had. What site are you reading from? Just now, that was the New York Post, but let's see, the Daily. He told the Star Tribune, which is a Texas. The Star Tribune is who's the Star Tribune? I thought, oh, it's Minneapolis. Paper covered it, and the Daily Wire also recovered these old stories. But the local paper, the Star Tribune, also covered it. Lauren. Kamala said she will do a mandatory buyback of firearms. This suggests to me that she believes she can override the Second Amendment. Yes, she can. That's what she believes. She said it would be would not be a voluntary buy, it would be a mandatory buyback. In other words, something that you bought legally, the government is going to demand you surrender. They're not going to pay you the value for it, even though you bought it legally. Now, it's a mandatory buyback. They're not going to pay you the value of your firearms. So good luck with that. Please tell Dr. Corson, according to Porchview Farms, that he is in his second term as president in my alternative universe. I love him. I do. I've met him when I was on Fox. I was on Hannity with him, and we're sitting in the green room. My husband came because he wanted to meet Ben Carson because he's a doctor, and they're both doctors. And I'm sitting in the green room, and there was this bag like on the couch next to me. So I just took it and I just put it on the floor right there so that someone could sit there. I didn't like move, and all of a sudden I hear this voice from behind me say, very softly, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Was my bag in the way?" And I look up and it's Dr. Corson. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm like, no. I said, "I just thought someone would want to sit down, but it's fine." He says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Picks it up and he asked if he could sit down. I said, "Absolutely." Introduced myself. And then I introduced my husband. Do you know, he spent a good 20 minutes before we went on air, before we went on Hannity, talking to my husband about medicine and the state of medicine in the United States, which, by the way, has only gotten worse. Obamacare and how that was just going to be a disaster, which it is. And what a nice man. But can I tell you, to me, he's not presidential material. He's too soft-spoken. He's too cerebral. He's too kind. He's not enough of an aggressive personality, but whip smart. So impressively smart and humble. I don't think you can be president and be humble. I think you have to believe you are the smartest person in the room to be president. I truly believe that. Because we need the smartest person in the room to be president. Like, I don't want somebody who I can relate to. Like, I want someone way smarter than me, right? I don't want some, I'm electing Obama because I can have a beer with him. Well, that's a really dumb reason to elect Obama, so you can have a beer with him. You want to have somebody that you can't relate to because they are just so smart that they're thinking 3 steps ahead and you're still trying to figure out whether the door pushes or pulls, right? That's what you want. Dr. Carson is somebody like I want to hang out with. Like, I want to have a beer with him. I want to pick his brain. I want to talk to him. And I do think he is smarter than I, but in a different way than what I think you need to be president, if that makes sense. So, all right. So that's it. Let's see. Star Driver says, "Thank you for having Alan West on." Herman Sal, "I think Dr. Carson left his bag there on purpose that he could say hello to you." I would. Oh, aren't you sweet? Well, he's going to be on the hit with me on Hannity. So in the green room, everybody just kind of mingles and hangs out and talks. And I've met some very interesting people in green rooms at Fox. Star Driver 1, I wouldn't say Kamala's dumb, but if you gave her a penny for her thoughts, she'd get change back. Yes. Suze says, "Dr. Carson is a gift to us all." By the way, Suze and Manglemush, I do fill in on WPHT, and I was just on the morning show Thursday and Friday. It's out of Philadelphia, and they are big contributors to the YouTube chat. So Suze, in the interest of full disclosure, I try not to read the chat because I have to concentrate on what's happening, number one, but number two, I'm not part of the show in that sense, and I just can't with some of the comments that come up on that chat. I don't need it. So, especially when I first came on, there were some really not nice things said. and I don't need the negativity. And I'm sure that there are good things said, and then I appreciate that. But if I were an employee and that were part of my job, I would read it. I'm just a guest. But thank you and Mangelmush so much for joining the podcast as well. Really appreciate you guys. And thank you, everybody. I will be tomorrow, noon to 3 Eastern time on with Todd Starnes. Look for KWAM, KWAM online. Look for KWAM on TuneIn and download the app, and you can watch there. All right. So let me just get rid of this here. Hold on one second. Let me just get rid of this. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you all. And oh, by the way, no podcast on Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be on vacation. So no podcast. But after that, we're going to do podcasts. So, and I can tell you as of right now, election night, even though it's a Tuesday, there will be no podcast because I'm going to supposedly, where as of now, the plan is that I will be in Memphis with Todd Starnes doing nationwide coverage of the election. Incredible opportunity for me. I love you all, but I immediately said yes to that opportunity. It's going to be nationwide. So far, it's going to be on over 30 stations across the country. And so I will tell you all where it's going to be, and you can tune in. And so I'm sorry that we will not be having this moment on election night. I was going to do bingo. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do, but that's what I'm doing instead. So I thank you for understanding, and I will see everyone next week. Bye.